Ilia Topuria's legal battles are over, and his UFC return is set. Dana White just greenlit the White House appearance, meaning the champion is finally free to fight again. Last month, someone asked Dana White if Ilia Topuria, the undefeated UFC lightweight champion, would be on the biggest card in UFC history. White didn't rule it out. He said it was possible. Now, as of February 5th, 2026, it's official. Topuria's legal battle with his ex-wife is over, settled on his terms, and he posted 3 words on Instagram that got the MMA world buzzing. The champ is back. He's aiming for one date and place, June 14th, at the White House. Yes, the real White House. Here's what happened. For the last 11 months, Ilia Topuria hasn't been able to fight. It wasn't due to injury or avoiding opponents, but because he was caught up in a tough divorce from his ex-wife, Georgina Uskatagi. There were custody battles over their daughter, financial disputes, basically all the issues that can keep top athletes from competing when they should be defending their titles. The MMA media ran wild with the story. Rumors spread that Topuria had to sell his $3.5 million mansion in Madrid because the divorce was draining his finances. People started saying he was losing everything he'd worked for. But none of those rumors were true. On February 5th, journalist Arati Pratt reported that Topuria and Uskatagi had signed a settlement agreement ending the case. The divorce, custody fight, and financial disputes were all resolved with one signature. What matters for fight fans is that the settlement was on Topuria's original terms. He didn't make any new concessions. Several outlets described it as a cordial resolution, meaning both sides agreed and moved on without more courtroom drama. Topuria is known for always staying active and taking on the best opponents, so being sidelined for almost a year must have been tough. This is the same fighter who moved from featherweight to lightweight champion without hesitation, but suddenly he couldn't even compete because of issues outside the octagon. Topuria didn't waste a single second after the settlement went through. Hours after the news broke, he was on Instagram posting training footage from his private gym in Madrid. And when I say private gym, I'm not talking about a heavy bag in the garage. This guy has a full professional training facility built inside his house. Recovery tanks, hyperbaric chamber, top-of-the-line equipment, everything you need to run a complete fight camp without leaving your property. The caption on that post was 3 words, "The champ is back." TMZ Sports confirmed the settlement and said Topuria is coming back to the octagon soon. Yahoo Sports went further and called it a total victory for the champ. No delays, no transition period, no easing back in slowly. The legal stuff ended and the training started the same day. That's the mentality of someone who's been waiting for this moment for almost a year. Now, the event Topuria is targeting isn't just another UFC pay-per-view squeezed in on a random Saturday night. This is something the sport has never seen before. The UFC is putting on a fight card on June 14th, 2026. On the South Lawn of the White House in Washington, D.C. Just stop and think about that for a second. Professional MMA fights at the White House. Fighters walking out from the Oval Office to the Octagon with the most famous building in America as the backdrop. The whole idea came from President Trump during a rally back in July 2025. He wanted something big, something patriotic, something that matched the scale of the moment. June 14th is Flag Day. It lines up with Trump's 81st birthday. And the entire event is built around celebrating America's 251st birthday, what they're calling the semi-quincentennial. They originally talked about doing it on the 4th of July, but June 14th is what they landed on. Dana White has been working directly with the White House for months to make this happen. When he sat down with Pat McAfee, he talked about the production level they're dealing with. His team has been building video renderings of the South Lawn that show every single tree on the property. They can map out exactly where the sun will hit every seat at different times of the day and what it'll look like when it gets dark. White called it a one-of-one event, something that's never been done before and probably won't happen again in our lifetime. The South Lawn is going to hold about 5,000 to 6,000 seats, all invite only. This isn't a show you can buy tickets to, but they're also setting up 8 to 10 giant outdoor screens around the Ellipse and the National Mall. So between 85,000 and 100,000 people can watch live. Nearly 100,000 fans will be gathered around the White House for UFC fights on a Saturday night. Fighters will walk all the way to the cage with the entire world watching. They're talking about doing the weigh-ins at the Lincoln Memorial, setting off fireworks over the DC skyline after the fights, and potentially running a full week-long UFC takeover of the city with events at all the major landmarks. The entire event will stream on Paramount+. which is now the UFC's new home after leaving ESPN. Some preliminary fights will also air on CBS to reach a wider audience. The UFC has ended its pay-per-view model, so instead of paying $70 or $80 for each big card, fans can get everything with an annual subscription. This change makes it much more affordable for casual fans. Now here's where it gets insane. Dana White told reporters he's trying to stack 9 title fights. That's an absolutely absurd number. The most stacked UFC cards in history usually have 2 or 3 title fights. If they pull off 9, this won't just be the biggest UFC event ever. It'll be the biggest combat sports event of all time. White has been calling it the baddest card of all time, and he's dead serious about making that happen. And just so nobody complains about it, the UFC is paying for the whole thing out of pocket. No taxpayer money. If the White House card is the biggest stage the UFC has ever created, the main event everyone wants is clear: Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje for the undisputed lightweight championship. While it's still technically a rumor, there's a lot of evidence suggesting this fight will happen. Let's start with Topuria. This guy is 17-0. He's never lost a professional fight. He won the vacant lightweight title by knocking out Charles Oliveira at UFC 317 back in June 2025. And that performance was so dominant that Dana White literally compared him to Muhammad Ali afterward. White said it was some ALI-level stuff and called him a star. Think about that. The president of the UFC, a guy who's watched thousands of fights and worked with everyone from Conor McGregor to John Jones, is dropping Muhammad Ali's name to describe this kid from Spain. Now look at the other side. Justin Gaethje picked up the interim lightweight belt at UFC 324 on January 24th, 2026, beating Paddy Pimblett by unanimous decision. This is the second time in his career he's held an interim title. And if you've been paying any attention to what Gaethje has been saying over the last few months, you know exactly what he wants. He hasn't been subtle about it. He's been on every show, every podcast, every interview saying the same thing. The only fight that makes sense is Topuria, and the only place it should happen is the White House. On the Pat McAfee show, Gaethje laid it all out. He said this fight is going to main event the White House card, period. He said he's been speaking it into existence ever since his fight with Rafael Fiziev. And he's got this whole patriotic angle that honestly writes itself. He's the only male American UFC champion right now. He wants to walk out of the Oval Office, carrying the American flag, to fight for the undisputed title on the South Lawn, on the night America celebrates its 250th birthday. You could not script a better narrative if you tried. After Topuria posted "The champ is back" on Instagram, Gaethje quickly responded, "He better be. I'm supposed to fight him in June on the White House card. That's why I fought for this interim title." Gaethje made it clear that he won the interim belt specifically to set up this unification fight with Topuria at the White House, not just for the title or the money. Insiders are saying the same thing. Reporter Alvaro Coimbra estimated a 90% chance that Topuria versus Gaethje will headline the White House card. That's as close to confirmed as possible before an official announcement. The timing works out perfectly. Topuria is planning to return between April and June, which fits the June 14th date. And Gaethje has said he won't fight anyone else before then. On paper, this fight is an absolute dream for anyone who loves the sport. Topuria's pinpoint accuracy and terrifying knockout power, going head-to-head with Gaethje's non-stop forward pressure and legendary iron chin. It's precision versus chaos. The early betting odds tell the story. Topuria opened at a massive -600 favorite, with Gaethje at +400 as a significant underdog. The MMA math is pretty straightforward. Topuria put on a clinic against Max Holloway, and Holloway previously beat Gaethje. So the logic points in one direction. Daniel Cormier went on air and straight up warned Gaethje that he'd get badly beaten if he abandoned discipline and tried to brawl recklessly against a counter-striker as sharp as Topuria. Michael Chandler called it a tall task for Gaethje, given how complete Topuria's game is. However, the odds and predictions don't capture everything about Gaethje. He's been in the sport for over a decade, but has never won undisputed gold. Now, he's fighting for the one thing that has always escaped him, and he'll do it on the biggest stage the UFC has ever created, with the President of the United States likely watching from the front row. No fights have been officially announced for the White House card yet, and Dana White hasn't confirmed anything publicly. But with Topuria's settlement finished, his return to training, Gaethje's public push for the fight, insiders estimating a 90% chance, and White promising the best card ever. All signs point to this matchup happening. The champ has returned. The interim champ is ready. The White House is set. Do you think this fight will happen? Or will Dana White surprise us? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you want updates on the White House card, subscribe for more news.